Hey, welcome back everybody to Every Week English. Once again, proving that that is not true, but keep practicing, right? Your English every week, right? Um, I was in Dubai. It was quite cool. Went up to the Burj Khalifa, 124th, 125th floors. Um, was thinking about going up to the 148th floor, but at that point it was ridiculous price. It was I think 150 per person, 150, maybe even 200 per person to go up to the highest floor that's possible. Um, so I figured skip it. As long as you're up there, you're quite high, go to the Burj Khalifa. Once in a lifetime sort of thing, the tallest building in the world. There's a superlative, right? Tallest. Um, the other things we did, we went to the aquarium. That was quite fun. There's a tunnel of fish you can walk through. They have one very similar to it in Bangkok as well. Um, and we even met with penguins, right? And we had a private audience with a penguin, and we pet a penguin. Um, you can find all those pictures on my Instagram. It's josh.golson. Right? Golson is Gholson. Of course, uh, likewise, we saw La Pearl, which is like an acrobatics show. It was so-so. I have seen the Moscow Circus, right? And I guess Moscow Circus, it would be 10 out of 10. Nikulin Circus, they have dogs even that do tricks and really wild acrobatics where they are up in the air without harnesses, with a net way below them. And, they're flipping and doing a lot of tricks and jumping from one side of the arena to the other. Versus in La Pearl, which is advertised as the best show in Dubai, uh, they had people up in the air, um, not really doing flips. Sometimes when they would jump into the water, in the center of the stage, they would do flips. Um, but generally, they just hung on to things while they went up into the air. So it wasn't as entertaining as the Moscow Circus, that's for sure. Uh, the other thing we did, we went to the dunes, the desert. We went dune bashing, right? So bash means to hit. It's Bash, right? Um, and that's where you drive really fast and you hit through dunes. And of course, we got nice pictures at sunset. Rode a camel as well, which was quite fun, and also had a dinner there with a couple of shows, a fire breather and also a guy who was spinning with a large dress. I think the Sufi mystics do that, so it's very similar. Um, what was extra funny is that I thought that the starter was the only food we were going to get, which was falafel and like very small chicken wrap. And so I got like 10 plates of that. I'm a glutton when it comes to all you can eats. It's like those stereotypes with Asian parents going to an all you can eat buffet. And glutton means that you eat a lot, right? It's one of the seven deadly sins. Uh, and then afterwards, they had the full buffet. uh, and it was like, damn it, yeah, it was bad. Of course, I ate that also, but just to get the money's worth. I turned it just that desert show is like $25 per person, right? Per person. And it was way better than La Pearl, and La Pearl was like $80 per person. Um, of course, we spent a couple of days at the beach, which was quite nice. I went and interviewed at a couple of schools, which was cool. But we were doing the math, and it's like you the options to save in Dubai compared to Moscow. Um, it's like you would never knowingly choose Dubai if you're just trying to save up money, right? Even though the salary is higher, the cost of living negates it, actually. Um, Dubai is incredibly safe. And like I have been telling students, It's just like America. Really. There is no culture of their own. They don't really go into the Arabic culture so much. It's a vassal state of the United States, which means that, like, sort of they're a manager for the United States on their own project, right? And their own project is the United Arab Emirates, right? So everybody spoke English. I only said salam alaikum once, right, or twice, which was to the very first two couple of people we met. Um, it was quite funny. Um, Everybody else just says hello. The service is fantastic. Everybody says yes, ma'am, no, sir, or yes, sir, no, sir, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. And I was laughing with them. I said, normally I say, yes, sir, no, sir, and then like I call you guys, sir. That's the way I was raised. And, I've worked in retail quite a bit also, um, or at least in my formative years. Um, and it's just one of those things of being a polite, like Southerner, you could say. Um, yeah, it's cool. That they had all the same restaurants as in the United States. So my wife got to try all of them, right? And it's funny now that I know, like, I've been living outside of the States for about 5 years, if not longer. And going back to the old US cuisine, you can see how, like, sort of basic it is. It boils down to barbecue and fried foods, right? And different sauces of wings. We went to Texas Roadhouse, Five Guys. Five Guys is from my home state, Virginia, and also Buffalo Wild Wings. And I was very happy to try Heart Attack Grill, which is quite a famous place that was founded by a personal trainer who wanted people to lose weight. And he realized that the best way to get people to lose weight is to mock them, right? Make fun of them. And so he founded a restaurant saying, "Hey, fatty, come here and eat." So if you weigh over two, I think it's 300 pounds, you get to eat there unlimited for free, right? And he serves massive portions. Normally it's hamburgers, and five people have had heart attacks, right? At least at that restaurant in Vegas. And I have shown this story to a couple of my students, and it was so cool to try it in real life. And I got a triple heart attack burger, which had three patties, four slices of bacon, um, a cheese croquette. Croquette, it's just something fried, right? And then um, some pickles on top of it, and some more cheese sauce, of course. Um, it was the most delicious hamburger I've had. I wish I had gotten more, and I regret not going back there and yeah, eating there more often. A really cool place. Heart Attack Grill, recommend it. Very tasty. And again, they do huge portion sizes. And so I was quite surprised that in Dubai it is the land of all you can eat. J Very similar to the States also. Um, and I would give Dubai overall like a 6 out of 10 out of all the places I've traveled, just because it doesn't have its own sense of culture. Um, it's like if you want to visit America without visiting America, go to Dubai. You can think of it like Miami, I think is the best way, except it's safer, right, than America. So I would give America like 5 out of 10. And then that score would go up based on state, based on city. Um, Overall, yeah, Dubai was all right. The next trip will be to Latvia, which is sorry, it'll be to Armenia, which is quite cool. I have an Armenian student who wrote me a tour guide there, and I'm going with my friend Gabe. And yeah, we're gonna have a good time over there. And then I'm going to Latvia afterwards for my birthday, and spending a good bit of time there, where I'll meet with a lot of very good friends and a lot of very good students also. Um, but those are the updates. I'm still writing, of course. If you want to check out my books, look up J.S. Golson. Um, just online, anywhere you'll find me. And again, it's Golson, Gholson. Likewise, I'll leave links for all of these things. Um, Otherwise, the topic for today is movies, right? And cinema. And the idioms for today are beating around the bush, which means to not say something straightforwardly. Right? We call it to obscurate. Obscurate. Um, or you can think of when you're trying to be overly polite and hinting at something. So, for example, um, when I asked my secretary about the missing file and documents, she was beating around the bush by talking about her weekend, right? So she was sort of trying to avoid it. The other example I used to use is like if I wanted to ask my parents for money when I was a kid, I felt it was a very taboo subject in an Anglo-American household. And so I would say like, hey, my stock portfolio is down. I broke my leg recently, and my dog is sick. Right? And then I wait for them to say, oh, do you need some help? Right? Or, oh, do you need some money? That sort of thing. So when I'm speaking, I'm beating around the bush, right? I'm not saying what I want to say, but I'm hinting at it, right? The other one is to be in a tight corner or a tight spot, um, or a tight position, even. And it just means to be in a difficult situation. Um, so, for example, um, I lost my second ring today, and it put me in a very tight spot, right? Because I lost my first ring when I was playing volleyball, and now that I've lost so much weight, my second ring just fell off. Terrible. And it was my dad's ring too. I'm very sorry. I think in the future I'll have to get either just a plastic ring, but like one of those children's plastic rings you can get from a vending machine. Right? Probably the best thing. And then the last one is at the 11th hour, is at the exact last moment. Um, exact last moment. So for example, um, while leaving for Moscow, Ethan kept his mobile phone charger in the bag until the 11th hour. Okay? So that means he was in airport security, and then all of a sudden he took out his iPhone charger. Right, so the very last moment. Oh. And then going on to talk about some cinema vocabulary. Likewise, it'll be passives for this chapter. Um, look at this. Let's see if it shows up. Yeah, good stuff. Um, there it is. So cinemas, of course, we've got all different genres, right? So the G in genre is soft. It just means what type, right? Um, we got actions, animations, or cartoons, you can say, comedies, dramas, historical films, horror, musical, rom-com, romantic comedy, sci-fi, science fiction, thrillers, fantasy, and westerns. Here they don't actually include fantasy, but they should. Um, Normally, sci-fi and fantasy are lumped together, right? But they are very different. You can think sci-fi, it's in the future, fantasy, it's in the past, right? Historical fiction is different because it's a real story with those. Um, Otherwise, a lot of famous films here. If anybody can recognize them, leave it in the comments. Right. Um, I think probably number 8 is my favorite Western. Um, I grew up watching a lot of Westerns, even though I have a cowboy hat and a poncho, just like in Western. Quite good movies. And, as for the people and things, we have audience, cast, critic, extra, plot, review, scene, script, sequel, set, soundtrack, special effects, star, subtitles, and trailer. Um, Normally students don't know plot, right? Plot is just the main story, right? And you can have side plots also. A side plot is a different story that is going on, but has no effect on the main story, normally. Sometimes it does have an effect, but normally it doesn't. Um, the other thing in extra, right, that's a person in the crowd. It's a no-named character. And then a set is a place where they are shooting the movie or the film. And normally it's fake, right? It is a built thing, it is constructed. Um, and of course, a sequel is just something that happens after. So think every book and every movie could have a sequel. The one I go to is Lord of the Rings. Right? There are 3 Lord of the Rings movies. So that means the first one, The Fellowship, has 2 sequels, right? So the sequel to The Fellowship is The Two Towers, right? And the sequel to The Two Towers is The Return of the King, right? And of course, they all have different special effects or CGI. And CGI, that is computer generated graphics. A star is the main character. So think of like the movie Fight Club. And Brad Pitt, of course, is one of the stars. There's 2 main stars there. Edward Norton is the other one. For subtitles, it is what you see on screens, the words depicted. And then, of course, we've got based on, set in, directed by, play the part of, was shot or filmed, and then dubbed. So the difference between subtitles and dubbed is that dubbed you hear, right, in your own language. For example, if you watch anime, you can either watch it in subtitles where everybody's speaking Japanese and you hear Japanese, but you are reading English. And then, of course, if it is dubbed, it would be dubbed in English, right? So they are speaking English and you hear English. Now, to be based on something means that your foundation of the story, of the ideas, is somewhere else. And so normally movies are based on books, right? So take Lord of the Rings again, those movies are based on the Lord of the Rings books, right? And of course, they can be based on real life as well. And then to be set in is just the time period for those. A lot of good ones. So, for example, like Fight Club is based on the book Fight Club, and it was quite well based, I think. I read sort of an American abridged version of it, but then taking a look again onto passives. So the passive tense is quite a fun one. Basically, if you want to say when it is nobody's fault, you can use a passive. So businesses and politicians use the passive tense a lot. And of course, it is be conjugated, like am is are, was were, or will be, or will have been, right, for example, plus the past participle, which is verb form 3, right? And it's Also, when you want to say who did the action, we use by, right? So we use the film was directed by Peter Jackson, for example. And normally you can take any object, and if it is not doing the action, right, then it is in the passive. So for example, with a cup, the cup is drunk by Josh. And there it's present passive. Of course, you can use it in the past. The cup was drunk by, so you're still using past participle, or you can use it in the future. You can say the cup will be drunk by Josh. And if you don't want to say who is doing it, so quite often news reports, they leave out who does it. They say the cup will be drunk, full stop. But it does beg the question, like, who did it, right? Who is responsible? Um, and normally we use these for objects that can't do anything, right? So a building is built by somebody, right? Same with a car. So a car can drive, right? A car drives, but a car is driven by someone else. And normally we go through like different things. So we take a video game controller and say the controller is used, right, by this person. The video game is played, uh, right, because a video game cannot play somebody. A video game or a book or a movie, however, can inspire somebody, for example. So they can give you ideas, right? And that's how they can do things for the most part. Um, Passives are interesting. Normally, there's a good example from The Office in use where Michael Scott hits Meredith with his car. And so he says, Meredith was hit. Right? So nobody is to blame, right? Nobody is responsible. Um, of, again, it begs the question, by who, right? And um, then he would say Meredith was hit by a car, right? And tell us whose car, right? And then finally they find out, well, it was Michael who was driving, right? So they get down through the passives into an active sentence. And so it is quite good writing not to use the passives. Normally it takes your reader out of the scene. It puts a layer between your audience and what is going on. Right? So I always suggest when you're writing, try and always stay in the active. It gives you what is called agency, right? Which just means that you can do things, right? You are doing things. Yeah, good. Otherwise, those are passives. Passives are quite nice. And then things about cinema. So, cinema vocabulary, and of course, discussion about cinema normally goes on. And that's talking about, what is your favorite movie, right? And can you think of different films? So, for example, can you think of a film which you've seen that was incredibly funny? Um, And for me, that would be Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels. Right, really funny movie. Or or Hot Fuzz is another good one. Both British comedies. Um, Likewise, Hot Fuzz, it's a very slow burn, but once it gets there, it explodes like a bomb. It becomes very funny. There are quite funny moments. Um, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, it is very well paced, and they have a lot of good jokes with a lot of good punchlines. Um, One that made you feel good, those are called feel good movies. I think, you know, you can think of a movie like, a feel good movie, The Life of Pi, right? About a kid sailing the world and getting, finding himself on that journey. Um, One with a very sad ending. That one would be like a movie like Marley and Me, where the whole movie is about this dog, and of course the dog dies in the movie you've seen several times. Um, Lord of the Rings, seen them a lot of times. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Also, I used to watch that movie every year, on the same day too. I tried, um, which was quite good. Very long movie. It's about 3 hours, roundabout there. Same with Lord of the Rings, right? Also quite long movies, um, and quite good movies. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. It's about a bounty hunter who gets tipped off, right? He gets told about a treasure. And so then it's about three bounty hunters who are all chasing after the same treasure, and about their adventures through the Wild West. And also in the background, there's the U.S. Civil War going on. And so they have to navigate that as well, those battle scenes. A movie which sent you to sleep, I would say that was the Titanic. Right? So I fell asleep during the Titanic because it's so cliched. Um, and I guess it was groundbreaking when it came out, almost 30 years ago, back in the 90s. But for me, just very boring movie because it's very predictable. Right? Not just about the Titanic sinking, but like, oh, rich guy, bad guy, poor guy, good guy. Um, very standard stuff. Movie with memorable soundtrack. Um, That'd be The Lord of the Rings or Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Quite good ones. Likewise, Once Upon a Time in the West has a really good soundtrack with harmonica, because the main character there, he's the man with the harmonica. And it has a wonderful theme, whenever he's in danger, someone else is in danger. Likewise, Lawrence of Arabia has very good soundtrack as well, and a lot of those old movies with film scores. Um, uh, I prefer seeing films in the cinema when it's possible, and I remember growing up that my dad and we would have like a movie day, and we would see three movies, in one day. And in the States, you pay once to enter, and you could technically hop into movies for free, but we never did that. We went back out, we paid again, and went back in. It's quite a good childhood memory. Quite a fun time seeing different movies like that, in the 2010s, 2000s. Um, Now, as for foreign films, I've seen most of the Russian classics, um, like Brilliantny Ruki, right? That's Diamond Arm or Diamond Hand. Um, that's where a guy goes to Turkey on vacation, and then he gets mixed up. A lot of those old Soviet comedies are about mixing things up, right? And he gets a cast, which is like a very hard bandage put on his broken arm. And in that cast are diamonds, right, that these bad guys were trying to smuggle. And so, of course, it's about running around and getting those diamonds off. Um, Likewise, one of the movies I used to watch a lot is the Pink Panther series. And there's about six or seven in that series. Um, but there are more, but those first six were the best ones. With Inspector Clouseau, and he was a bumbling, incompetent idiot, but everything always went his way. Um, Lots of Russian films, like I said, for foreign films. I like Shurik a lot and his adventures. Again, it's about the main character accidentally bumbling his way through life. Of course, Prisoner in the Caucasus is a very big one. Another movie I've watched was Office Romance. Of course, had a quite different name in Russian. It's something like Sluzhevny Romance. Um, Old, yes, Sluzhevny Roman. Um, and I actually worked in the building where they filmed his apartment, which was quite cool. And so we would have tourists who came by to that building just to see. Um, and I think it's always better to see foreign films with subtitles. Currently, I'm watching the TV show Shogun, and it's subtitled in Japanese, and it is quite good. I rated about 9.2. Um, I'll say also a really good film I saw in the last year was Dune and Dune Part 2. Um, because they stuck to the script, right? They stuck to the basis of the book. Um, Hollywood didn't make any changes to it. Normally, Hollywood has a target to add in its quota to add in a certain number of, minorities such as Black people or Hispanics, um, and of course homosexuals, of homosexual women and homosexual men, and of course trannies as well. But Dune, without that, just stuck with the book. Um, and the book is quite interesting, though I read it about 10 years ago. And of course, it's set on this desert planet of Arrakis, and it's quite interesting because the movie doesn't explain anything. So if you haven't read the book, or you don't really know what's going on, you don't know what spice does, even. They don't explain it. Um, and as for starring in it, there's the guy from Aquaman. I don't really pay attention to celebrities at this point. And of course, it has quite a good plot and a very distinct soundtrack. Um, it has quite an interesting moral topic to it, um, which is you can draw a lot of parallels between Dune and Islam. And even in the books, as it progresses, it goes to he creates a religion. Paul Atreides does, and it's called like Zen Islam. It's like a mix between Buddhism and Islam. And of course, everybody's in the desert. Mm. And so the music is very Arabian based as well. Um, and it's all about fate or destiny versus our own actions. Um, and it is quite interesting how Frank Herbert is able to create such good story, developing characters, trying to show you like the biggest question: is life based on destiny, right? Or can you do something in your own life, right? Do you have that agency? Um, or is everything just set already before we're born? Oh, and it's one of those questions that is timeless, really. So I recommend everybody see that movie and read Dune. It's quite good. Uh, Otherwise, that'll be it for this episode. Don't forget about those idioms: beating around the bush, be in a tight spot, and at the 11th hour. Quite good ones. This has been Josh Golson. Check out my books. All the links will be in the description. Leave a comment, leave a like, all that good stuff. And I'll see you guys next time.